Hi guys, welcome to CP Talks on Literature. Today we are going to say about Virginia Woolf. Virginia Woolf was a writer concerned above all with capturing in words the excitement, pain, beauty, and horror of what she termed the modern age. Born in 1882, she was conscious of herself as a distinctively modernist writer at odds with the raft of the state and complacent assumptions of the 19th century English literature. She realized that a new era marked by extraordinary developments in urbanism, technology, warfare, and consumeration and family. Life would need to be captured by a different sort of writer along with Joyce and Proust. She was a relentlessly creative writer in search of new literary forms that could do justice to the complexities of modern consciousness. Her books and essays retain a power to convey the thrill and drama of living in the 20th century. Woolf was born in London. Her father is a famous author and mountaineer, and her mother a well-known model. Her family hosted many of the most influential and important members of Victorian literary society. Woolf was largely cynical about these grand types, accusing them of pomposity and narrow-mindedness. Woolf and her sister weren't even allowed to go to Cambridge like their brothers, but had to steal an education from their father's study. After her mother died when she was only 13, Woolf had a first of a series of mental breakdowns that would plague her for the rest of her life, partly caused too by the sexual abuse she suffered at the hands of her half-brother, George Duckworth. Despite her illness, she became a journalist and then a novelist, was a center figure in the Bloomsbury Group, which included John Maynard Keynes, E.M. Forster, and Lytton Strachey. She married one of the members, the writer and journalist Leonard Woolf. She and Leonard bought a small hand printing press, named it the Hogarth Press, and published books from their dining room. They printed Woolf's radical novels and political essays when no one else would, and they produced the first full English edition of Freud's works. In just 4 short years between World Wars I and II, Woolf wrote 4 of her famous works: Mrs. Dalloway, To the Lighthouse, Orlando, and the essay A Room of One's Own. In March 1941, feeling the onset of another bout of mental illness, Woolf drowned herself in the river Ouse. Her works has many vital things to teach us. Number 1, notice everything. Woolf was one of the great observers of English literature. Perhaps the finest short pieces of prose she ever wrote was the essay The Death of the Moth, published in 1942. It contains her observations as she sits in her study, watching a humble moth trapped by a pane of glass. Rarely have so many profound thoughts been echoed out from which an apparently mindless situations, though for Woolf there were no such things as mindless situations. One could not help watching him. One was indeed conscious of a curious feeling of pity from him. The possibilities of pleasure seemed that morning so enormous and so voracious that to have only a moth's part in life, and today a moth's at that appeared a hard fate, and his just in enjoying his meagre opportunities to the full. Pathetic, he flew vigorously to one corner of his compartment, and after waiting there a second, flew across to the other. What remained for him but to fly to a third corner and to the fourth? That was all he could do in spite of a width of the sky, the far off smooth of the houses, and the romantic voice now and then of a stream out of sea. Wolf noticed everything that you and I tend to walk past the sky. The mane of others' eyes, the gaze of children, the Scotism of wives, the pleasures of department stores, the interest of harbors and locks. Emerson, one of her favorite writers, may have been speaking generally, but he captured everything that makes Wolf special. When he remarked, in the work of a writer of genius, he rediscovered our own neglected thoughts in another great essay on being I am Wolf, lamented how seldom writers stoop to describe illness, an overnight that seemed characteristic of a sᴜɪ̈ against the everyday in literature. English, which can express the thoughts of Hamlet and the tragedy of Lear, has no words for the shiver and the headache. The mere schoolgirl, where she falls in love, has Shakespeare or Keats to speak her mind for her. But let us suffer her trying to describe a pain in his head to a doctor, and language of once runs dry. This would be her mission. Wolf tried throughout her life to make sure language would do a better job at defining who we really are. With all our vulnerabilities, confusions, and bodily sensations, Wolf raised her sensitivity to the highest art form. She had the confidence and seriousness to use what happened to her, the sensory details of her own life, as the basis for the largest ideas. And the second one is accept the everyday. Wolf was always profound but never afraid of what others called trivial. She was confident that the ambitions of her mind to love beauty and engage with big ideas were completely compatible with an interest in shopping cakes and hats, subjects on which she wrote with almost unique equivalence and depth. In another particularly good essays of hers called the Oxford Street type, she celebrates the gaudy vulgarity of his huge London shopping street, the moral less point the finger of scorn at Oxford Street. It reflects, they say, the levity, the ostentation, the haste, and the irresponsibility of her age. Yet, perhaps they are as much out in their scorn as we should be if we asked of the lily that it should be cast in bronze, or of daisy that it should have petals of impermeable enamel. The charm of modern London is that it isn't built to last, but it is built to pass. In an accompanying essay, equally open to the unprestigious side of modern life, Wolf goes to visit the Jane docks of London. 1,000 ships with 1,000 cargoes are being on London every day. And not only in every package of this vast and varied merchandise, picked up and set down accurately, but each is weighed and opened, sampled and recorded, and again stitched up and laid in its place, without haste or waste or hurry or confusion, by a very few men in shirt sleeves who, working with the utmost organization in the common interest, are yet able to pass in their work and say to the casual visitors, "Would you like to see what sort of things we sometimes find in sacks of cinnamon? Look at this snack." The third one is be a feminist. Wolf was deeply aware that men and women fit themselves into rigid roles, and as they do so, overlook their fuller personalities. In her eyes, in order to grow, we need to do something gender bending. We need to seek experiences that Blair what is mean to be a real man or a real woman. Woolf had a few lesbian affairs in her life and she wrote a magnificent bold queer text. Orlando, a portrait of her lover, Vita, described as a noble man who becomes a woman. She wrote it is fatal to be a man or woman, pure and simple. One must be woman manly or man womanly. In her anti-war tract, Three Genius, Woolf argued that we will only ever end war by rethinking the habit of pitting of sex against sex. All this claiming of superiority and impudent inferiority belonged to the private school stage of human existence, where there are sides and it is necessary for one side to beat another side, and of the utmost importance to walk up to a platform and receive from the hands of the headmaster a highly ornamental pot. Woolf wished desperately to raise the status of women in her society. She recognized that the problem was largely down to many. Women did not have freedom, especially freedom of the spirit, because they didn't control their own income. Women have always been poor. She cried not for 200 years merely, but from the beginning of time. Women had less intellectual freedom than the sons of Athenian slaves. Women have not had a dog's chance of writing poetry. Her great feminist rallying meant women not only needed dignity but also equal right to education, an income of £500 a year and a room of one's own. Woolf was probably the best writer in the English language for describing our minds without the jargon of clinical psychology. The generation before hers, the Victorians, wrote novels focused on external details like city scenes, marriages, wills. Woolf envisaged a new form of expression that would focus instead on how it feels, instead to know ourselves and other people. Books like Woolf, which aren't overly sarcastic, aren't caught up in adventure, plots are cradled in convention, or she's expecting us to turn down the outside volume to try on her perspective and to spend energy with subtle sentences, and in turn she offers us the opportunity to notice the terrors we normally miss and better appreciate moths, our own headaches, and our fascinating fluid sexualities. Thanks for watching.